Next offering is fouled back. Next one is off the plate. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Swing and a miss. The velocity blasted it right past him.
Toughest pitch to hit. Fastball and on the outer black. Man, sometimes you just got to tip your cap.
Halpin in the box for the second time. 1 ball, no strikes. The 1-1. And it's fouled away. The pitch. That one missed. Swing and a miss, and he got him. And good work there as he gets a 1-2-3. Ready now for the 5th inning. Now it's the right fielder, Isaiah Green.
Leading off for Akron.
This one popped up. Foul ground first base side. No trouble here. Puts it away for the out. And there's one away.
Got the pitch that he wanted. Just a little bit quick. Front shoulder open. Backside collapsed a little bit. And the launch angle not where he needed it to be.
Tolentino stands in now and watches strike 1. And he's down 0-2 as he swings through it.
Well, on the mound, very efficient. Able to produce an outcome, it seems like, within the 3rd or 4th pitch of just about every at-bat.
The punch out there, 2 down. Now it's the shortstop, Jose Tena.
He came out of his mechanics there. Typically likes to shoot the ball the other way, but that time, a little anxious.
The 1-0. That misses, and that's ball 2. Next offering is in for a strike. And the right-hander deals. On the ground, out to short. Tosses across to first. That's the 3rd out. So they've been held scored 5. Welcome back. All right, we go to the top half of inning number 6. And here's the first baseman, number 13.
Number 13.
Next offering upstairs.
Come on, guys. 2-0.
That one fouled off. 2-2. And a pitch. Got him. So he's gotten deep into this game, and at least so far, not showing a ton of signs of fatigue. Brennan at the plate and takes high there.
Ball 1, no strike.
The next offering misses, and that's ball 2. That one's spoiled, and the count now 2-1. Next pitch misses. 3-1.
Here's an opportunity to do some damage and perhaps unlock this offense. 3-1 count. Be ready to turn on a fastball.
Hauls it in for the out. Now the number 2 hitter, Jonathan Lopez. One push to the left and foul. And the righty deals. Popped up to the left into foul ground, and that lands in no man's land, a foul ball. 0-2 now, and there's a ball.
Hey, strike this guy out. Get him yourself.
A little tardy on that fastball. Is going to have to get it going a little quicker. Get that front foot down.
And a pop-up, right side, foul territory. On the ground, Walt handles. To first, but it pulls him off the bag. Here's the left fielder, number 27.
Number 27.
Hey, we got 2. Shoot down.
Next pitch has popped up. To first, and he beats it. Everyone's safe.
Well, that at bat had a lot of pressure riding on it, so really great job coming through right there. It's got to feel good. Pretty much did the opposite of what you want to do with the pitch on the outside part of the plate like that. Just rolled over, but good hustle down the line and got the infield knock. Now we'll see if they can pick up that tying run and start us over here in the late innings.
And that is that. Welcome back. We're in the 7th. We have a new pitcher on the mound. Darian, a 5-3 final score in this one. For Chris Singleton and our entire crew here at MLB The Show, thanks for stopping by. I'm John Sciambi. Talk to you soon.
It's important for pitchers early on.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Ron, before we took a break, we're checking in on one of my diamond.
This minor league team is reminded that the eyes of the organization are keeping tabs on them.
For so many players,
a pitcher is confronted with a less than stellar stat.
baseball players are notorious.
A manager checks in with his ball club. An agent needs to check in from time to time to make sure his client is happy with his situation. A savvy agent will engender confidence, but the measure of a good agent is how well he can turn these possibilities into actualities. A fast-developing young player has gotten the attention of the higher-ups in management. Prospects may not realize how closely they are being watched.
As competitive as professional.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Of course, it's not always by.
This minor league team is reminded that the eyes of the organization are keeping tabs on them. A Double-A manager has called one of his young players in for a quick word. The word is good. Within 48 hours, this player will be in a new city and putting on a new uniform.
Exciting times as.
Did I hear this right?
When players start producing
a player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Ron, what do... We're back on the road to the show.
With the season approaching its final stretch, the manager calls for heightened focus from his players.
Carlos, for so many Ron, what goes into scout?
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Well, we spoke earlier with... We know a variety of things can...
Late in the season and holding a comfortable division lead, a young team is cautioned.
Sometimes the closer you get to the...
A young team gets some extra coaching up from their skipper before the first game of a very big series.
The phrase, well played, Matt.
Having earned a chance to compete for a league championship, these young competitors have gained the respect and fondness of a grateful skipper. A manager challenges his players to improve their championship odds. With one game about to decide a league championship, an experienced manager shares a moment of levity with the young team he has come to cherish.
gusta cómo camina, pero más me gusta cuando amanece, piensa en mí. Cuando sale por la calle, casi nunca piensa en mí. Con lo que ella usa de boutique, es problemática como una coche. Me tiene loco con ese mi petit. Está puesta por la calle, pa' todo el amor. Dice que soltera la pasa, compañía no sale. Se pone peligrosa como un error. Está por la calle, pa' todo el amor. Dice que soltera la pasa, compañía no sale. Se pone peligrosa como un error. Tocan Cupido, lo mató con su arrepol. Desde que tiene 21 tiene la vida resuelta. Pichea pero tienta, el amor lo dejo en hold. Ya no cree en nada, elegancia y maldad. Se junta con su corillo todita ya. Y no se deja pero mide 5'1". Yo no pero ahora con ella rompe las combi con la retro 1. Yo te quiero como mi desayuno. No soy cristiano pero chori por te ayuno. Me tienen maquinando con el calle pa' todo el amor. Dice que soltera la pasa, compañía no sale. Se pone peligrosa como un error. Está por la calle pa' todo el amor. Dice que soltera la pasa, compañía no sale. Se pone peligrosa como un error. Siempre está en la movie, no le pone stop. Se combina la Gucci con el top. Está como una porque a su corazón le puso el lock. Se puso el bikini, su sunblock. Y de uno pa' la playa, a coger un sultán en la toalla. Como Farru y este vaya. Tiene un sexto sentido que nunca le falla. Está puesta con flow maraya. Sale y llama la atención. Como de la del bloque es la sensación. Piquetea guiando en la Rubicon. Ya no confía en nadie. El amor va de mano con la traición. Por eso le dio un poco a la reducción. Como camina, pero más me gusta cuando amanece, piensa en mí. Cuando sale por la calle, casi nunca piensa en mí. Con lo que ella usa de boutique, es problemática como una coche. Me tiene loco con ese mi petit. It's a simple question, you got it or not. I've been talking to God about the garage, just for the crib that I still haven't bought. Both rocking my thoughts, going too fast and I ration. But I need 42 on the way up. I'm the ambassador, meaning I gas of the land I came from. Make it rain and the money looking like ransoms. And my brain know what stated I'm laying the answers. I've been feeling like I'm fighting with my thoughts. In the bench on the top, punch in the bag, while you listening to the blocks. I'm about to get my rock. I need to call it my pop. I'm killing the pain, I'm feeling the change. I'm a villain to ones that wanna know my name. You better think twice about the moves that you make. When your heart's closed, when the truth is erased. Ay, don't disturb, I'm in a booth. Ay, my name shiny like my tooth. Ay, yo, trying to reproduce. Ay, DMs open, I'ma shoot. Don't disturb, I'm in a booth. Ay, my name shiny like my tooth. Ay, yo, trying to reproduce. Ay, DMs open, I got options. Look, you know where I've been. France 7 a.m. I'm a phantom. Just landed up in Japan for my body with more with a reason to leave. My inhibitions are breathing. I eat no and then I do my deepest. I'm about to run a mile on these. I'm chiropractic and crack smiles on these. I'm 21, trying to make 9 cents, really. I'm 29, crib by size of the Pentagon. Just got the shoes as red if I let me out. Got magic, I thought she was hearing me out. I'm at Hermione, switch environment. I'm feeling uninspired. Was better precipitate than finding my soul in clarity. I'm burying my sins, the blessings on my evidence. Ay, I'm a businessman without a business plan. Racks and playing the fitness. Abracadabra, new Illuminati ain't the mantra. I ain't new lessons. I gotta walk out slowly. I'm usually dramatic. I'm a raw dog life. I ain't doing no habits. I'm a start from the start. They be calling me Patrick and like a giant tarantula. I've been dealing with some whack. Making backstab, make 'em feel the pain like I'm in. I'm living, I'm ripping out the page. They've been asking where the rap said. I don't need the bread, I'ma give it to the really gotta come to my shows when it is open. Rock the Chanel, like my name Frank Ocean. I dress well, you on that beat, no. I'm paying all the bills though. Money being multiplying like an. Do I really need a crib on the hills though? It's probably gonna be good for my mental. I pop out, man, I was a dropout. Whip louder than the rappers arguing on Clubhouse. I'ma throw their hands whenever I go on a run out. Wanna start but don't know when to do it like I'm Bow Wow. Stop the hate, just walk away, they gon' make it home and see the kids. I'm awake and I ain't ducking out. Peace and quiet, running out of time. I'm calling up like stay home. The sessions that you got, tell them you can't make the drive. They spraying on a bad day, so that hope I don't know if I got 911 to die. It made me cry. Man, it's civilized. I ain't born to die. I need to stay a while.
He recently got the call to AAA, and he is now within shouting distance of the major leagues. But for now, he'll have to. He has been on a hot. When you get to the AAA level, you know exactly how close you are.
This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers.
We're really starting to see some hints of what he could become on the mound. He has been stellar in his latest pitching performance.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. An agent checks in with a client currently in the minors.
Well, it hasn't been all roses for him lately. He's been scuffling a little bit.
This minor league team, the eyes of the organization are keeping tabs on him.
This young player has been flying up prospect rankings.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
He's been in AAA for a minute.
This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of...
This is a guy we've talked about before, and he's getting a lot more attention lately, really rising up the prospect ranks. Mike Lowell is with me. Mike, you went from 20th round pick.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
At the AAA level, a lot of your teammates are guys who have been to the show already, and they can impart a lot of wisdom that can be really useful to a young player.
This minor league team is reminded that
his rise just keeps on going. He's made a name for himself as a pitching prospect. We are getting closer day by day to the trade deadline, and that means that top prospects...
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Carlos, you played in AAA.
This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers.
I've had runs in the minor leagues, even in the major leagues, who have shown through it.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Guys, you've heard me talk before about what a bright future this young player has. He's opening some eyes. He's getting some national attention. And somebody who knows a little about that is Cliff Floyd, once the minor league player of the year. Cliff, how do you deal? Well, I'm getting increasingly impatient about this.
In the minor leagues, a lost season is never fully lost because any situation can be a teaching opportunity. Entering the last series of the season, this team's situation is precarious, but not without hope.
It's easy to forget sometimes how challenging it is for any prospect to make it all the way.
A manager confronts his pitching staff about an unacceptable team statistic. Sometimes dreams do come true. This player is about to get the chance the chance to see if he's got.
He has made it to the show and.
Listen, nobody's going to sit there and say the kid can't.
And it's got to be so exciting for him as it is for every young player.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
This is not a July night in Pittsburgh. That's why teams pay the.
This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers.
A rookie has a lot.
A pitcher is confronted with a less than stellar stat.
Well, I talked recently about some struggles he was having, and there were some rumors he might get sent down, but it looks like he's back on track, and for now.
A manager addresses his team about their recent slump.
Congratulations. He just picked up a.
A major league pitching coach acknowledges a young newcomer on an early milestone accomplishment. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Heck of a performance in his last time on the mound. I know it's still a small sample size, but
this manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his.
Case, if I can, I want to follow. He did it. Made his first All-Star team.
A pitcher is confronted with a less than stellar stat.
All right.
It's one of the most intriguing.
A manager checks in with his ball club.
Jonathan Mayo, what is it about young players?
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Al Leiter talked to me because we're looking at a rising star on the mound. This is early in his career, and he's lighting it up. He's causing.
A skipper appeals to his players to demonstrate some resilience.
You know what the chances are of finding an ex-water, John?
Today, we are shining a spotlight on one of the most exciting young players in the game. Ken Griffey Jr. joins us now. And Ken, I think we're looking at the real thing here. I'm wondering, what did you think when you first saw him?
Ooh. The first time I saw him, I was like really impressed. And the more and more you see him, the more and more you realize that this guy is going to make a big impact for years and years to come. So, having a guy like that on the field brings the excitement.
An early winter check-in. New to the majors, this player is offered schooling on the structure of his contract. The agent moves on from that topic. A stripling major leaguer is challenged to make spring training count.
Most rookies at the major league level do struggle.
At a young age, he is.
The pitching staff is pressed to step up their game.
Mike, we know it. Failure's a part of this great game. How do.
A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager addresses his team about their recent slump. A player's agent calls to touch base. The player expresses interest in going elsewhere. A pitcher is confronted with a less than stellar stat. The player receives an update from his representative. This team's pitchers are being challenged to ask more of themselves. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager addresses his team about their recent slump. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. This team's pitchers are being challenged to ask more of themselves. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. This ain't rap music, this straight literature. Small-minded, all your ideas miniature. They tend to hate on you when they can't get rid of you. I ain't going nowhere, 20-year career. A skipper appeals to his players to demonstrate.
September 9th is a special day across Major League Baseball.
Not Lefty Grove.
Yeah, all right, my flow sinister. Yeah, all right, my flow sinister.
They're already postseason bound, but he's not in proper form right now.
Well, you know what? I think the first thing is this. They've punched their ticket, right? You want to do well as a player because you want to get into the postseason first. Now, as a player, when you're struggling in September, that's when you just have to say to yourself, okay, maybe I need a day off, or maybe the manager will give you 2 days off, right? I think that's one of those things. Maybe this guy might need a day or two off, relax, slow down, because all you have to do is get ready for when the postseason comes. So I think this is a great time to struggle. If you've already punched the ticket and you're struggling personally, you're eventually going to get it going. So maybe you change up your routine a little bit and figure out a way to get hot again.
A great time to struggle. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Willie Mays Plaza, the home of the Giants and Oracle Park, an NL West matchup on the show. It's the Arizona Diamondbacks. First pitch coming your way next. Just about set, and on the mound in this one, Big Daddy Zavala.
Yeah, his ERA last year was a little worse than average, so definitely be looking for better results this season. You know, one of the keys is just being able to have a consistent delivery and to be able to repeat that delivery so you can hit the spots that you want to hit and have a higher chance of being successful.
Righty delivers. Swing and a miss. It's a ball and 2 strikes. Next offering upstairs.
Recognize that changeup right out of the hand. Just spit on it.
Swings and misses. Now 1 away.
Well, I think he was waiting on the changeup right there, and he got it. It just drifted too far in on him. I think that pitch is just a little more out over the plate. Probably squares it up, but instead, he's going to have to go take a seat.
Next offering is in for a strike. No score, just getting started, top of the first. The 1-2.
I got the count 2-2.
Here we go, guys.
And a foul ball. He stays alive. Swing and a miss. The velocity blasted it right past him. Ketel Marte up to the plate.
Well, he should get some fist bumps when he gets back into the dugout, because even though he strikes out, he saw a lot of pitches and he battled. And this is a long haul where you're trying to get that pitch count up as early as possible. So gave the guys behind him an opportunity to see what's working for this pitcher or not. But I tell you what, it's a nice job right there.
Foul ball there. Here's the 0-2. Stays alive. And the pitch. To the right side, Triantos collects the throw to first, and Arizona is set down 1-2. Back here in San Francisco. All set for the start. Akil Baddoo stands in now for the
I'd say these guys really needed to win this game today. It pushed them over the top to win the series, which is great. But when you go on the road, going into some hostile territory, you want to have a lot of confidence, and you want to be feeling really good about how you're playing, as well as to your left and your right, your teammates, that they're on track as well.
9-4, our final score. For Chris Singleton and our entire outstanding crew here at MLB The Show, I'm John Shambi saying so long.
For the Diamondbacks, 4 runs on 8 hits, 1 error. They left 18 runners on base. Time of the ball game, 3 hours and
Yeah. Look, it's easy to tell that I belong to a high power. Even when I seen didn't rekindle my firepower. You not a threat, nothing to fight about. I see through you even when my light is out. Okay, hey, okay. To prove. I feel like y'all cannot walk through my shoes. I feel like I'm damaged beyond repair. I feel like I lost a whole lot of screws. I feel like as a kid nobody was there for me mentally. Nothing else mattered as long as we had a roof. But I needed a home, not a house. I mean, I wouldn't have brought more room, but it's cool. In my heart I knew there was a Benz coming, but for now it's worried when the rent coming. What would you do for look when your Benz slung a couple your heads coming, wasn't cooking no soup on that bugging. We was eating the water that cleansed from it. I got through it, I'm showing improvement, I could prove it. I'm the truest, always knew that I could do it. I'm a student and a teacher, I can teach you. I can eat you any feature, a preacher. I've heard a serpent, seen an angel, to me with demons. See ya, so please don't believe that I don't belong. Get a demon, I'm conquered them all. I felt the rain, I felt the sun, and y'all about to feel this rain again. I ain't gotta talk, y'all. It's easy to tell that I belong to a high power, even when I seen didn't rekindle my firepower. You not a threat, nothing to fight about. I see through you even when my light is out. Okay, hey, okay. You locked in your house, outside of my house. Not making no noise, just chasing the clout. You want the cheese, but without no dreams, you will continue to sleep on the couch. You're the scene and making a scene. That's two different things that we not about. Hey, okay, hey, okay. Hey, it's been so long that I had to be strong. I just carry my own, had to do it alone. But I kept carrying on, I'm okay.
A manager confronts his pitching staff about an unacceptable team statistic. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager addresses his team about their recent slump. A player's agent calls to touch base. The player expresses interest in going elsewhere. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A player receives an update from his representative. This team's pitchers are being challenged to ask more of themselves. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager confronts his pitching staff about an unacceptable team statistic. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. This team's pitchers are being challenged to ask more of themselves. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A skipper appeals to his players to demonstrate some resilience in how they finish a rough season.
On the cusp of the postseason, and you know it, Ken, the atmosphere changes as you get closer and you get closer. What are the telltale signs of its approach?
You know, fans start coming out. They start wearing the colors. You get to see more and more people at the ballpark. It just becomes a more livelier place. And I think
an early winter check-in. A previously discussed issue is taken up again. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player's agent calls to touch base. The player expresses interest in going elsewhere. A pitcher is confronted with a less than stellar stat. A representative calls with big news for his client. And just like that, the course of a career changes. A recently acquired player meets with his new manager. The manager does what he can to make the player feel comfortable.
One of my favorite young prospects has just been moved to a...
This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers.
He's facing the team that originally drafted him for the very first time. Ken, you know what that's like. 11 years with Seattle. You go back. Are you trying to...
A coach offers support to a pitcher who's been giving up the long ball. The pitching staff is pressed to step up their game. A pitcher is confronted with a less than stellar stat. A manager confronts his pitching staff about an unacceptable team statistic. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A skipper appeals to his players to demonstrate some resilience in how they finish a rough season.
Al, you could just tell from his body language he wasn't happy with that last performance. What was missing?
Command. I think
this manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player's agent calls to touch base. The player expresses interest in going elsewhere. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers. A player receives an update from his representative. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. The pitching staff is pressed to step up their game. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers. A coach offers support to a pitcher who's been giving up the long ball. A skipper appeals to his players to demonstrate some resilience in how they finish a rough season. A young pitcher is called into his manager's office after a notable performance. A pitcher receives kudos from his coach after a memorable appearance. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player's agent calls to touch base. The player expresses interest in going elsewhere. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager checks in with his ball club. Player receives an update from his representative. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A player on a less than exceptional team gets a mid-season call from his agent. In the weeks leading up to the trade deadline, a lot can happen. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager checks in with his ball club. A player receives an update from his representative. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. With the season approaching its final stretch, a manager calls for heightened focus from his players. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A skipper appeals to his players to demonstrate some resilience in how they finish a rough season. With the team's chances hanging by a thread, this skipper calls for a last stand. Entering the last series of the season, this team's situation is precarious, but not without hope.
Let me see what I could do right quick. My people were made of who's like this. Boy flying, they never flew like this. Pitch black butterfly from the other side. Somebody's style was lost, it wasn't mine. I'm in a small demographic, a real one's dealing with all things classic. King's fabric, linen and silk, from the home of the solid gold, honey and milk.
An early winter check-in. A previously discussed issue is taken up again. A representative calls with big news for his client, and just like that, the course of a career changes. This manager is hoping to stoke the competitive fire of his pitchers. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches. A manager addresses his team about their recent slump. A player's agent calls to touch base. The player expresses interest in going elsewhere. A player receives a check-in from one of his coaches.
Thanks for joining us. I'm John Sciambi along with Chris Singleton. Third inning right now with 2 away.
Second baseman, Jake Cronenworth.
Foul ball.
He's done a great job getting the first 2 outs. Want to get this number 2 hitter, get back in the dugout and face 3, 4, 5 next inning.
Strike 2.
The hitter early and off balance on that swing. If I'm the pitcher, I'm taking a little bit more off. See if you can get him to chase something in the dirt.
At the belt and fires. That's hard hit on the line. Can't get there. Should be extra bases.
Really nice job, a 2-strike hitting in that at bat. Nice line drive to the full side, met it out front, but just stayed through it nice enough and ripped it into the outfield. And now they've got some speed on first, so we'll see if they try to get him into motion.
Machado at the plate now as he chases after that one. Oh, he jumped the gun for second. The tag, and that's out number 3 inning. Back here in San Diego, Austin Slater stands. Back here in L.A. Welcome if you just joined us. John Sciambi and Chris Singleton as we've got 2 away in the ninth. Walker in the box now. Takes strike 1. Just 1 out away. Try to close it out. Line drive. Base hit. 1 run is in. The tying run is in to score, and we are starting over. And they've tied it in the top of the ninth. David Peralta at the plate. First pitch, and he just misses.
Yeah, Boog, if you're that base runner at second base, you want to be quiet out there. Not bouncing around, not distracting your teammate, the hitter. Make sure that he can clearly focus on that pitcher and that release point.
Here's a 1-1.
Could be some action here on this next pitch. Couple runners on. Probably a challenge pitch coming.
Next one misses, and the count is 3-1. Next offering finds the zone, and the count is 4. First and second, 2 down. Next offering is fouled back. And a foul ball. And a 3-2. And down on strikes he goes. Inning over. Although plenty. Josh Van Meter comes on defensively now as he takes over as the new second baseman.
Now playing second base.
The wind to the pitch.
19.
Raley swings through it for strike one.
That's a really big swing right there. He's got to remember, with this speed, a walk or a single can turn into extra bases by stealing a base or two.
Comes up empty on the swing. 0-2 now.
Trying to keep good speed off the bases.
Swing and a miss, and he struck him out. And the leadoff man retired here in the ninth. And now it's Gavin Lux.
Well, they're shorting up with 2 strikes right there. I mean, it looked to me like he had one thing on his mind, and that was trying to end this ball game. Now, it's kind of surprising since he was leading off this inning, but when you look at the long ball and how often it's relied upon in terms of scoring runs, being able to win ball games, I guess I'm not so surprised with the way he went after that with 2 strikes.
Swing and a high fly ball. That one out towards left center field. Way back there. Gone. Ball game. A shot to the opposite field.
Just another bad in Atlanta. It's your wicked daddy fat. One half of the mighty Odom player, list of Cadillac. Boys riding through your city. If you with me, bring it back. I'ma stay styling, wildin', profiling while sticking to the facts. See, right here we doing laps. While some might be feeling trapped. Never hating, just graduated. I've been down through the cap. No cap. Do the dash and cruise the map. Do the map. I've been around the world and now, yeah.